Ja, dit is weer helemaal, dit was weg.
Ja, toch?
Het is helemaal weer opengemaakt.
Ze hadden hem teruggehaald.
Ja.
In the end, they chose the design that my father had done, the Morning Star flag. And so this flag was installed then in 1961 on December 1st.
I really do feel like I have a privileged position here because, you know, I have access to pretty great education. Also, I can talk publicly about West Papua and not get arrested or get shot or whatever.
I was born in a refugee camp, and that's the place where my mother heard about the assassination on my father.
Kamu dari mana? Saya bilang saya dari Papua. Orang Papua itu kulit hitam. Iyo. Emang pikir orang Papua itu apa? Saya pikir mungkin kulit ini kayak begini juga lulus. Bukan, orang Papua itu beda sekali, beda jauh dari orang Indonesia.
Jadi buruan akhirnya terkurung. Yang ku damba, yang ku nanti, tiada lain hanya kebebasan. Yang ku damba, yang ku nanti, tiada
Between 1949, 1950 and 1962, the Dutch really tried to develop this notion of Papuan going towards a road to independence and freedom. And my father was in the middle of that whole process. He became a member of colonial parliament, the Dutch New Guinea Council. He became one of the vice chairs together with Marcus Kashepo, who was the other vice chair.
From the stories my mother and family have told me, and also pieces that I've read, that he was imprisoned for the activities he did, which was just making music and educating Papuan people about the cultures and about the desire to freedom. And after he was put in prison, the Indonesian military set up a scenario where he so-called fled, and that was the reason that they shoot him in the back. It was in 1984, after my father was imprisoned, I think in the same period, we fled to the neighboring Papua New Guinea. We arrived there a couple months later in August 1984, where I was born in a refugee camp, and that's the place where my mother heard about the assassination on my father. And a year later, we seek political asylum in the Netherlands, and that's basically where my life started.
This notion of Papuan nationalism needed to be stimulated. And a very important symbol in that, of course, was a flag that unified a people. But my father said, let's ask a couple of people to design a flag and we'll choose the best one. And so people came with their designs. In the end, they chose the design that my father had done, the Morning Star flag. And so this flag was installed then in 1961 on December 1st. My father was told that he could get killed if he stayed on, because they were obviously, they wanted Dutch New Guinea as a part of the Republic. And those new political leaders from Papua were standing in the way, of course, of that ideal from Indonesia itself. Quite rapidly, they had to leave a lot behind, and so they arrived at the airport here in Amsterdam in the Netherlands in 1962, in August 1962. A whole new life and a whole different life suddenly became reality.
Well, my grandfather always talked about the struggle, always. Starting from a very young age, he used to tell me about it. The stories my grandfather told were always kind of like mythical, you know, like it's a paradise and we have birds of paradise. And I was just like, what? That sounds like a fairy tale. But I couldn't believe it. It was too far away from me.
1st of December or just events, family meetings. Those were the times, the places where I started to learn our culture, about our culture. And that's also the place where I started to know what was happening in Papua. Why don't we hear about Papua? And then, well, we live in the time of internet. And then we search and we see, all right, this is going on.
So in my family, this idea of we do not have a home was very strong. So I remember that vividly as a child, that there was no home, although we had a house to live in.
The start was when we met independence leader Benny Wenda. Yeah, that was basically the moment that we were almost start to be part of Free West Papua campaign.
When I stepped on the floor, landing in Sentani Airport, I felt the earth creep into my feet and my legs. There was a burst of energy going into my body, but the earth was kind of speaking to me, saying, "Yeah, you're home."
My grandfather moved back, so in 2010 he immigrated back to. Well, it was supposed to be West Papua, but he ended up living in Jakarta. So that's when I first started noticing, like, okay, I have a very special family history. But the moment that I really got involved personally and started to read about it and, you know, trying to become an expert of my own family history, is actually when I went there for the first time myself, which was in 2017.
For the people here, I'm not Dutch. But when I'm in Papua, I'm not Papua, but I'm Dutch. But the way I see myself is that I'm a Papua.
I think that's the most important journey in my life, is finding out basically why Indonesian military assassinated my father, why we had to flee away from West Papua, because, you know, it haven't been educated at school. How West Papua was a former Dutch colony. We don't learn anything in the Dutch history books. So I think that journey learned me to understand how big injustice is in West Papua, that my father's story is just one of the more than 500,000 stories.
In a way, we have a sort of a privilege to live here, but at the same time, that privilege also brings responsibility.
Because there are so many problems, and it all goes back to or stems from them not being recognized as a fully human, almost. Their human rights are being abused, and, you know, the right for self-determination is being denied for over 60 years, you know.
Racism for me, you know, it's like it comes in here, it goes out there. I don't really focus on it. You know, I know myself. I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I know where I come from.
I think being a Papuan is a way of life, is understanding, is the connection itself with the homeland. And especially with my background, the way I lost my father and understanding the situation in West Papua, how is it possible to not be connected with what is happening there, with the injustice which is happening on a daily basis, the racism by the Indonesian government. It keeps me busy every single day. My heart cries every day. And the healing is to express it here, to educate people about what is happening, and that is what I'm doing.
Saya kira semua yang berada di teritorial Indonesia adalah rakyat Indonesia, dan ini adalah NKRI, Negara Kesatuan Republik Indonesia, yang harus kita bangun bersama-sama. Ya, saya sudah mengajak mereka untuk berbicara bagaimana membangun Papua bersama-sama, bagaimana bersama-sama bisa mensejahterakan masyarakat, bagaimana mengejar ketertinggalan agar bisa sama sejajar dengan saudara-saudara yang lainnya. Dan saya kira nanti kalau memang ini direspon akan lebih baik.
Kita punya tujuan itu untuk bersatu. Biar kamu dari Biak, Sorong, dari Kaimana, Fak-Fak, dari Merauke, kita harus bersatu. Biar kamu orang asli Papua atau peranakan Papua, orang Maluku atau orang Jawa, orang Manado, kalau ada hati untuk Papua itu kita bersatu.
I feel like the West and the Netherlands always feels like, yeah, we're super privileged and we do everything right here. But on the other hand, like morally, ethically, I don't feel privileged at all here, because I really miss the community vibe that I do feel in West Papua itself, but not so much in the Netherlands. So that's something that I miss from there.
I would love to go, let me say it that way, but because of my prominent activism, I've been kind of blacklisted, and my security has not been guaranteed by the Indonesian government. So therefore that would not be an invitation for me to visit my beloved country.
I think the bottom line is in a democracy that the Republic of Indonesia strives to be, Papuans should be considered as full-blown citizens who have rights and who need to be respected. And I think that's not, that's not happening. So I think that's the most important thing, that they're taken seriously as citizens of the Republic of Indonesia.
Terbang tinggi mata